Hello, welcome to the Future of Media, Radical Integration. I'm Peter Granite, President and COO of Cision, and I'll be your host for today. Cision is pleased to sponsor this event. We work with thousands of clients worldwide, ranging from small businesses to the Fortune 500 to most of the top PR firms. And we're excited about bringing this impressive and diverse group of thought leaders together to discuss the future of media and the impact on our industry. In the next 60 minutes, you'll hear from 30 marketing and social media influencers, from bloggers to corporate executives and agency principals, each with a unique perspective. They will answer 15 urgent questions that's confronting all of us, and they will share insights in today's turbulent marketing landscape, the rise of radical integration, and its impact on the marketing mix. When you look at the overall marketing mix, it wasn't that long ago that advertising, or paid media, was dominant. Public relations, earned media, was considered most of the supplement to the mix, and owned media, like the company's website or Facebook fan pages, had interactive qualities but basically shared advertising's one-way communication mindset. With the explosion of social media, these lines are beginning to blur. Now marketers are powering their stories through earned media while extending them through owned and paid media channels. And as marketing has truly become a conversation, PR people are becoming earned and owned media experts with a new focus on publishing, corporate narratives, and branded content, and engaging in the dialogue of the social web. Today we'll answer 15 critical questions about the future of all media. Advertising hasn't died, but how has radical integration changed it? How important is owned media? Is every company a publisher? And how is earned media growing in stature within the new marketing mix? We'd like to thank AMAC, Dwyer's, marketing profs, and thought leads for helping spread the word about this event. So without any further ado, let's dive right in, and I'll talk to you on the other side. The radical integration of traditional marketing silos has changed the business landscape, with the boundaries between paid, earned, and owned media in a state of flux. What is the new marketing mix today, and what will it look like 3 years from now?
While there are always exceptions to the rule, I think the biggest gap in public relations professionals compared to marketers is the always present mindful eye on the three primary business metrics. How much did we make? How much did we save? Are our customers happy? More specifically, I think public relations has always been so focused on the intangible and the intrinsic. So things like good media relations, crisis communications, event management, and the like, they've been focused on those so much so that they haven't, and I mean that they haven't by design, so I'm not pointing fingers at public relations pros, but they haven't ever had to be accountable for direct sales numbers, conversions, or leads. PR people have always been judged by column inches and advertising equivalency, not units sold. So social media and digital marketing now make that a golden opportunity for public relations. If the PR efforts for a company include blogs, website content, or even social networking activity like Facebook or LinkedIn or even Twitter, we can now, using analytics software, as long as we plan ahead, we can track leads, conversions, and even sales from those activities online and start to put a more direct dollar figure result to the efforts of a public relations team. Social media is closing that gap between what has public relations done for me lately and a dollar figure in many instances out there. As a result, traditional public relations has been disrupted and PR folks are being held more accountable. I personally think that's a good thing. What public relations professionals need to do is ensure that they're holding themselves accountable, master the metrics, understand how to draw those lines to the three core business metrics. How much did we make? How much did we save? And are our customers happy? If you start to do that, and you can do that using digital tools, you'll start to close the gap and see a lot more satisfactory results from the higher ups and the executives that are judging you as a public relations professional. I'm Jason Falls with Social Media Explorer.
Social media provides a fundamentally more powerful tool for advertisers because, unlike anything in the past, social networks are a venue where customers not only can receive messages, can receive information, but can also interact with them. This makes them very effective from an advertising standpoint, but also blurs the lines quite a bit between what's paid and what's earned in particular. And equally importantly, makes it possible for advertisers to gain insights and not just use this as a medium for communicating or talking at the customer. For example, one of the big benefits of social networks is you can identify your best customers by their interactions with you, which is what paid and earned media help you kind of pull together, using, for example, your Facebook page to have conversations with your best customers. But equally importantly, the powerful benefit of social networks and social advertising is that with each advertisement, with each interaction with customers, you can actually extract insights about who your best customers are and, equally importantly, how best to reach them on other medium, other channels like television and radio and the like. So social networks, we believe, are not just yesterday's ads rolled over into a new channel. They are representative, fundamentally new and more powerful, more effective medium for advertisers, both seeking to reach customers on them as well as to more effectively manage their media mix elsewhere. My name is Dilip Venkatachari. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Compass Labs, a social advertising solution.
It's been 10 years since the Clue Train Manifesto declared the death of advertising. Why hasn't it died? How has paid media evolved as marketing has truly become a conversation, especially as earned media and corporate-owned content have increasingly facilitated that conversation?
So it's been 10 plus years since the Clue Train Manifesto came out, and it gave all marketers something to really think about. And that was the wisdom of the crowds and the ability to basically get your message found instead of having to push that message out there. But modern marketing, modern advertising really hasn't died at all, because what we found out is that it's not necessarily that we just write content or we have a product and we have a service, we put it out on the market and it's discovered. It's the discovery part that's the hardest part. We have to get the right message to the crowd. So what we're finding as marketers is that we have to spend a lot of time on developing our content and making sure that the message is factual before we hand it to the crowd. And then the crowd then takes that and amplifies that message. But it hasn't changed. It's changed the tonality of the message that we're putting out. Now we're having conversations with those people and we're clarifying the message and we're curating that message as we're putting it out there. And it's really important for marketers to understand that it's a combination of the two. It's that we utilize paid marketing and paid advertising still to get discovered and to make sure that the message is set and the tone is set. But then we carry that conversation and we continue to leverage the crowd and leverage the wisdom of the crowd to amplify that message out beyond. And this is really, I think, the happy medium that we're getting to. I don't think that we're ever going to get to a point where the crowd is going to be smarter than we are about our products and services. So it was idealistic with the book when it first came out, and we found that that really isn't the case. But the demand for content and getting that message out and carrying that message across these social mediums, that part of the Clue Train Manifesto is absolutely pertinent. My name is Douglas Carr. I have an agency, DK New Media, and I run the Marketing Technology blog.
It has been 10 years since the Clue Train Manifesto predicted the death of advertising, and advertising is clearly not dead. While social media has allowed marketing to become more of a conversation, that conversation is only one piece of the puzzle today. Advertising reaches a scale and a speed that social media just cannot compete with yet. When you need awareness, advertising brings the numbers that most companies are after. Advertising also can accompany social media really well. It can provide the audience from which a company starts a conversation with, or starts a loyalty program with, or starts that engagement. Content marketing is also a big potential when it comes to competing with advertising. But most businesses don't create the type of content or the quality of content yet that really can compete with the numbers and the speed that advertising has. Also, the average consumer is more comfortable with passive actions like joining a group or consuming media than they are participating in conversations, especially with a brand. That's just not the norm today. It's slowly evolving and it's growing, but everyone consumes media, and advertising, because of that, can reach the masses like nothing else. social media can reach the digital influencers that many businesses are after. And both of those combined are important separately and together. This is Jason Keith with socialfresh.com, the social media education company.
Is earned media playing a larger role alongside paid advertising and corporate-owned content in the new marketing mix? If so, why? If not, why not?
Is earned media playing a larger role alongside paid advertising and corporate-owned media? Of course it is. In fact, if you think about it, why does a corporation even participate in paid, owned, and earned media? And in particular, in the owned piece. If there's one thing that social media has taught us, it's that content marketing, this constant ravenous need for content that the corporation creates, whether in the form of tweets or blog posts or funny viral videos. Why do they do that? They do that in order to gain word of mouth. They do that in order to gain incremental improvements in their reputation. That is the essence of earned media, because earned media in the past may have been all about getting that New York Times article or that e-week hit. But earned media today is about earning the trust and reputation of everyone who participates online. Everyone who's walking around on the street outside today is a publisher. And if not a publisher today, then certainly a prospective publisher tomorrow. They'll be publishing tweets. They'll be publishing their opinions on Amazon.com and on Yelp. They are going to affect your reputation. And so all these things that any corporation does, whether it's paid media in the form of advertising, whether it's owned media in the form of, again, blogs, tweets, or any other kind of content that the corporation creates, or whether or not they're engaged in a PR firm where an article shows up that they can't wait to talk about and distribute through all their other channels. All of that is earned media. And so when you think about whether or not earned media is as important as paid and owned, I would argue that earned media is the most important thing in that mix. It's all about reputation. It's all about word of mouth. And with everything going online, anything that you do, any reaction you get will be earned. I'm Todd Deffern, principal of Shift Communications.
Absolutely. I can't see how a marketing plan could get funded today if it didn't integrate paid, owned, and earned media tactics equally. The reason is simple, and really the phrase earned media says it all. If you don't think your paid and owned media warrants earned media attention, then you need to rethink those plans. After all, who can afford to allow an A&M dollar to do one thing and one thing only? If you're shooting a television ad and not thinking about how you can amplify the impact of that ad by capturing exclusives for your Facebook page or seeding content that will become a trending topic on Twitter and eventually earn a mention on Tosh 2.0 or The Today Show, then you're missing out. Whether you're introducing a new product or creating an experience that will deepen your consumer engagement with your brand, you can only get so far by talking to your consumers through paid and owned media. Through traditional media relations, we've always had the opportunity, when the stars were aligned, to add credibility to our brand story by leveraging a third-party voice. But the advent of social media means that earned media now also includes the conversations that our consumers are initiating because they're invested in our brand experience. That's the power of earned media, and that's the ultimate goal of any marketing plan. To get there, earned media can't be a nice plus-up that you tack on to a completed plan. It has to be a part of the equation from the start, and it has to be supported in the same way, with the same resources and funding that your owned media and paid marketing efforts are. This is Andrea Foote, Director of Communications for PepsiCo Beverages Americas. Thanks for listening.
How important is owned media in the mix? What does it mean that every company is now its own publisher? Is that true?
Owned media is very important today in the marketing mix because it's a real opportunity for the brand to tell a story and to be a publisher of customized information for constituents. So you have the ability to create content in a transparent and human way, and you're able to reveal the people behind the company. And this is critical because you can make connections, have a voice, and build stronger relationships through owned media. This is really different and so much better than the one-way messaging of the past, and I'm thankful for that. When you create meaningful content, it shows that the company has listened to the market. And when you listen, it's easier to tap into critical decisions, to solve a problem, and even to help people just to make decisions. So through owned media, you definitely affect consumers, and you get them to rally around social objects and interact and engage with you, and to take some type of desired action. So owned media through brand developed channels is really a powerful proposition, and it does lead to great things, whether it's goodwill, advocacy, social capital, it could be influence, and that's what brands are really seeking today. If you were to ask me if there are challenges, yeah, definitely there are. This is an investment, so you need support, production, you have to think about distribution. What you put into owned media is what you get out of it, just like anything else. So, yes, it takes time and money, and it also takes creativity and most of all, passion. But I truly believe it's worth the investment. I'm Deirdre Breckenridge, and I'm the author of PR 2.0 and Putting the Public Back in Public Relations.
So as I think about the role of owned media as we look at the overall mix of communication and marketing, with all of the ways that people now have to join a conversation, I think that owned media has become a very important voice in the overall mix. Today no organization is now dependent on traditional media to shape opinion or tell a story or defend a decision. And that's both a blessing and a burden. You need to be sure that your teams are organized in the right way and that they have the talent necessary to deliver in what has become a very content-rich environment. It's no longer our job to just parrot corporate messaging in the hopes that someone will listen. We actually need to go out and create and share content in places like blogs and in the various social media channels and via video. That gets people talking about our organizations, and it keeps the conversation going. As you look today, you don't need channel managers. What you need are communicators who know how to find, build, and tell stories about your organization. And you need to make sure that they're doing that at the right time, to the right audience, and in the right channels with the right tools. So as I take a look at, paid media and owned media and earned media, I really do think that companies have indeed become their own publishers. But I also believe that that takes all of the voices in the choir, if you will. So more than ever, I believe that we have to collaborate and partner with our folks and our friends in marketing who are, in charge of a lot of that paid media responsibility and who might even have some of the owned media. But we all have to be working together to ensure that our stories send the most relevant and timely messages to our audiences that they're looking for. And this is no longer about what we want to tell the consumer, but instead, these are various opportunities that we have to first listen in this new environment and then create content to join the conversation. This is Linda Rutherford, and I'm the Vice President of Communication and Strategic Outreach for Southwest Airlines.
And how does owned content mesh with traditional paid advertising and earned media?
Here at Initiative, we believe the most powerful marketing and media strategies are fueled by data-driven insights. That's why we've invested in one of the most powerful sources of marketing insight in the world, a panel of 200,000 consumers across 45 markets. This allows us to investigate the intersection of consumer attitudes, buying behavior, and media consumptions to unlock the most effective marketing approaches. The first thing that we found across categories we studied is that consumer involvement with brand communication is key to unlocking brand growth. In other words, the more we can get consumers to participate with our brands in paid and owned media, the more the business will grow. In fact, there can be a cyclical and virtuous relationship among paid, earned, and owned media. It's a really unique recipe depending on the category, brand, and market. We created econometric models for paid, earned, and owned media and found some really interesting and powerful relationships. For example, in the U.S., among top auto brands, we found that 37% of earned word of mouth online was created by visits to the brand website or owned media. So in this case, owned media drives earned media. In Australia, we analyzed a leading shampoo and found a very different relationship. Our model showed that paid media was responsible for 60% of the change in online word of mouth. So in this case, paid drives earned. Finally, in the mobile handset category in the UK, our model showed that advertising in TV, print, and online can motivate people to go to the brand website, which is a very important channel in this category. So in this case, paid drives owned. So what are the implications for actions? Track and measure consumer involvement, map the brand's touch points, connect the purchase path to every touch point, use local insights to create local plans, and finally, give customers an experience, not a rotation of messages. This is Brett Leese, and I manage a team of 15 analytics professionals in North America for Initiative.
I think owned content meshes perfectly with traditional paid advertising and earned media. But what owned content does and means needs to evolve significantly in order to fully actualize its potential to bolster both paid advertising and earned media. And specifically what I mean is that owned content can mean a lot of things. It can mean an ad that we have on our website. It can mean a blog post that we have about our company. It could mean a press release. But the kind of owned content that I've seen really work is the kind of owned content that actually leaves people's lives better off. It's the kind of content that provides how-to information. It's the kind of content that provides meaning, substance, and depth and actually changes the person's life when they engage with it. And this isn't just a naive ideal. It's actually been proven to work. For example, a recent survey in eMarketer showed that mothers who are engaging online are much more likely to engage with and click on an ad that is informative, that improves their life in some kind of way. And so if you could imagine a world where paid advertising and earned media are driving people towards owned content that they want to engage with and that they want to share with other people, then you can imagine a world where brands are actually earning the trust of the consumers that they're engaging with, and everything that they're doing with their paid advertising and earned media, it has long-term success. It has long-term positive implications because you're not just hitting someone once with one message, but you're inviting them to an engagement that's going to make their lives better over time. This is Sam Rosen. I'm the creative director at ThoughtLead.
How much listening to the customer is really going on in marketing today? Who does the listening, and how in the realms of paid, earned, and owned media? Will listening be radically integrated into tomorrow's marketing mix, or will it be left behind? How will this evolve over the next 5 years?
I sometimes wonder how much listening is actually going on in terms of the customer in the marketing mix and in the service mix. In fact, I would estimate that most businesses are antisocial versus social in their social media strategy. And that might sound odd, but I looked up the definition of antisocial, and it said anything that goes against the norms of a society. And if you look at Facebook, Google+, Twitter, they're all their own societies. Each one boasts its own culture. And I believe that in order to truly engage within any one of those networks, in order to be social, it requires that you first listen. I don't mean monitoring. I don't mean looking up your brand name, your company name, your competitors' names, seeing what's being said and what the sentiment is. I mean gathering intelligence, earning or gaining empathy of what your customers are saying, what they're feeling, what they're thinking, their challenges, their opportunities, and compare that to your strategy as it exists today so it can define not only how you develop new marketing strategies and tactics, but also how you build better customer relationships. That's what this comes down to, is relationships. We look at all of the data available today, all of the conversations that are published on Facebook, Google, Twitter, you name it. And you have what's being called big data. You have all of this data, all of this information, and what do you do with it? Well, it's going to take much more than putting it into reports. It's going to take analysis. It's going to take interpretation. It's also going to take innovation in how you take that insight and apply it across the organization for better marketing, more relevant products, more open leadership. That is what the future of listening looks like. And how it evolves today and over time is how you take that information, how you build a more social business, and how you become a more relevant and adaptive business based on exactly what your customers are looking for, so that you can deliver the value that they seek, and more importantly, that you can get value out of the engagement. My name is Brian Solis, and I'm the author of The End of Business as Usual and Engage.
With all of the changes taking place recently in the interactive marketing space and with the internet, I think it's going to be increasingly important to pay attention to the social challenges that we are faced with and to focus in on making a very good strategy utilizing paid media as well as owned and earned media moving forward. And really the idea is to look at an integrated approach with the three different types of promotion and marketing for our businesses. I think that a really great way to understand what's happening in the social sphere and on the internet regarding our name and our brand is to engage in some type of monitoring or listening. Once we have a good understanding and we've been listening and monitoring, it's important to recognize how we're going to utilize all of the different opportunities that are out there. As things have changed so much, there are a lot more blurred lines between things like PR and advertising. And I think they all have a place in the marketing mix, and an integrated approach is always the best. So paid advertising is going to continue to be important, as well as continuing to focus in on PR and social media and looking at the opportunities that are available to us through our own channels. So earned marketing, where we are able to promote ourselves via many different channels like Facebook and YouTube and our website, etc. And I think as we move into the future, this is going to be even more important because those lines have been blurred and because people are accessing information, data in such different ways. It's very important to remember that we have to be in all of the places where our target audience would expect us to be. I'm Kelly Cutler, and I'm the CEO of Marcel Media. We are an interactive advisory firm focusing on search engine marketing, social media marketing, and web analytics.
How has social media changed our concept of paid advertising?
Hi, this is Sarah Evans, owner of Seven Strategy at PR Sarah Evans on Twitter. Today I'm talking about how social media has changed our concept of paid advertising. I come from a background in traditional PR where there was a very clear guideline drawn between public relations and advertising. And as social PR has become integrated into what I do for clients, we've noticed that social media is impacting advertising in a few ways for what we do. One way is through integrating paid social media. That might mean placing ads on key sites. Perhaps it's Google ads, Facebook ads, or securing ad space on a blog where you know your target market lives. One other thing we've seen evolve is the evolution of the advertorial third-party endorsement, meaning we may work with clients who compensate or gift bloggers into writing about their product. And we do this in a few ways, but most important in that is that we also educate our bloggers on the FTC guidelines for online endorsements so that we make sure everything is on the up and up. Also, one thing that I found really exciting is the world of socials impacting paid advertising is how it's become surprisingly genuine. And the example I most like to talk about is the Old Spice social media campaign. This originally started off as a commercial, but evolved into something much bigger as they began involving consumers in the actual ad process and videos. You can also look at how the role of the writer has changed to show how social media has changed our concept. It used to be people would turn to newspapers, magazines, or other traditional media for buying decisions, and now they're actually looking at blogger endorsements as someone who is a trusted resource in addition to what they would do previously. So social media is changing the concept of paid advertising, and we're trying to keep up along with all of you.
I really think when we're looking at how social media has changed our perception of paid advertising, it's important to look at what we think of traditional paid advertising versus non-traditional paid advertising. We traditionally think of paid advertising as a print ad in a magazine. When you're looking at something like that, it's become something that's very impersonal. It's what I like to call one-to-many messaging. So if you're an audio company with a portable iPod dock and you have a full-page print ad in, let's say, Macworld magazine, you're communicating the same message to all of the different readers of that magazine. Some may only care about the portability, some may care about the sound, others may care about the price, but it's one message to all of those people. And now with the introduction of social media and something that used to be sacred space, but now advertising is starting to infiltrate those sacred spaces, paid advertising opportunities have become much more personal. By utilizing social media platforms, it gives advertisers and marketers the opportunity to, instead of doing one-to-many communications, they're now doing one-to-one-to-many. And what that means is, if you take the portable iPod dock scenario, is that same audio company can now find the people online that do care just about the portability and the mobile lifestyle. they can communicate their message or market that message directly to that individual. And if that individual likes that message, they then share that with their audience of followers and friends or fans. So it gives you that one-to-one-to-many type of communication that really wasn't there before. So I think social media has allowed us to take our portrayal of what we think paid advertising is, which traditionally was very impersonal, to a very personal level. And I think we're only going to continue to see that increase, as the years go on. I'm Lindsay Groper, Senior Vice President at Blast Media Public Relations.
How has social media changed our ability to generate earned media?
All right, so the question that we're looking at today is, how has social media impacted the way PR gets coverage moving forward? If you looked at the old way that PR did things, it used to be relying on a media monitoring tool to get information about reporters, what their beat was, what they covered. That way usually allowed a lot of spam that came into reporters' inboxes, and there was a lot of distrust and hatred towards PR people. With the onset of social media, you can actually see what a reporter's talking about, what they're writing about, and what their interests are in real time. With that, you can build up a relationship to where now it's not only talking to them when they have a story coming out, but actually what they're working on and what their interests are. So you build that relationship. So it's not a cold call. It's not spamming. You're actually reaching out to them. So once the relationship's been established, you can look at things and say, hey, what are you working on? Here's the information that I have. Are you interested in it? If not, great. But if you are, you can now pick up the telephone or send an email to give more information and establish a story from there. If I look back to the past year, 2 years of coverage, these online relationships I've built with reporters have actually garnered me probably about 40% of the coverage that I've attained. As the future moves forward and the newsrooms continue to shrink, reporters continue to cover more beats and more areas, now there's going to start to be the need for PR people to get creative and get in front of these reporters on a medium that they're comfortable on. Email is probably not going to work. A pitch over Twitter, as long as there's a relationship there, isn't spam, and more than likely the reporter will tell you yay or nay within an hour or so. So you don't have to wait on that continual follow-up and get the annoying phone calls that ruins a relationship. So the big thing is using social media to leverage a relationship online to build offline results. This is Jeff Esposito, the Public Relations and Social Media Manager at Vistaprint.
In the old days, if you were a PR person wanting to get news coverage for your organization and you didn't have an extensive Rolodex, you'd send out a press release and just hope and pray that a journalist found it interesting. But now, you can actually interact with journalists in real time. If they're working on a story and they're posting about it on Twitter, you can comment on it. You can follow reporters on Facebook and Twitter to see what they're interested in, to see what they're writing about, and even sometimes see the queries that they're working on for their latest stories. So that's totally something that we weren't able to do before. Now also you can respond to reporters' stories online. You can write a comment to the story and maybe even be considered as a source for a future story that the journalist is working on. So I think that social media is just really breaking down the barriers between the public and the media, because we can so much more influence what journalists are writing about in real time. And as someone said before, news no longer breaks, it tweets. I was recently contacted by a Wall Street Journal columnist who was working on a story about people who were voted most likely to succeed in high school, and she had put me on a short list of sources because I had expressed so much interest in her beat in the past. I was able to connect her with 3 perfect sources, 2 of which she included in her story that ran in the paper. So the bottom line is social media now gives us an access that we've never had before. We have access to journalists, and we're empowered to make our voices heard. My name is Amanda Miller Littlejohn, and I'm the founder of Mopwater Social Public Relations.
How credible is social media when it actually owned media, managed and directed by the corporate marketer, and used to influence consumer behavior?
If social media is activated by a brand as owned media, meaning that it's looked at as a one-to-many medium in lieu of a one-to-one, its efficacy and value is lost. The purpose of social media is that it's conversational. Brands only create value and establish relevance with consumers by providing value. If they are disruptive or throwing things up against a wall to see if they stick, as we do in above-the-line media or in digital online, for example, consumers will identify that and either leave the conversation or disinvite and disengage with a brand that chooses to be part of it. The value of earned media is that brands have an opportunity to allow consumers, which is quite often the most intimidating aspect or attribute rather of earned media, is that brands have an opportunity to allow consumers to take on the brand's identity, to shape it, to form it, to mold it, to create a bespoke personalization of the brand that is relevant and valuable for them. Within earned environments, there's an incredible opportunity to leverage those that have influence and activate their peer group. We see quite often in social environments that 20% of individuals influence 80% of their peers in their environment and are most active. There's a great opportunity for brands to engage these individuals with bloggers, outreach, things like that. But it will only be done effectively if it's done in a transparent, very open way. And brands, again, will only allow those that influence because they will not compromise the integrity of their social network by offering value and not being disruptive, but rather being positively influencing within that context. My name is Ashley J. Swartz, and I'm an SVP of Marketing at Digitas.
Social media is very credible, even when it's practiced and managed and directed by a corporate marketer and used to influence consumer behavior. I say that because social media is just like being around the old-time water cooler. You talk about tips of information, you dispel myths, you share and engage one another and talk about what's really going on. That's no different than what happens in the social sphere. Sometimes companies do try to overly influence consumer behavior. They do try to lie. Very often this happens in greenwashing, when corporations try to say that they are sustainable, but they're not. But guess what? Just like what happens around the water cooler, you get found out. And because of the social democracy, you not only get found out, but consumers rally against you. And that is why social media is even more credible than any other kind of media. Consumers and other decision makers are self-policing companies today. So corporate marketers have to engage with their decision makers and with consumers. So 2 tips I always say to look for. 1, how much are corporate marketers engaging with their communities? Are they just shelling out information and trying to sell you something? Or are they engaging? Are they asking opinions or questions? And then 2, are they selling or are they also giving you information and real research? Are they pointing to other articles? Are they pointing to research? Are they pointing to other experts to help you stay informed and connected? This is Kara Stewart with Remarks Media. We're a business-to-business marketing agency specializing in social media and digital marketing.
How specifically is the role of earned media evolving?
So the question is, how specifically is the role of earned media evolving? Well, I say that it is evolving rapidly. Earned media from the start has been about credibility. A third party is saying something about you or your brand or your client's brand. And that gives a sense of credibility. But all of this social media messaging, sharing, conversations is based on trust. So if somebody trusts a reporter, they may then feel like they trust your brand. But what about the trust of friends? That is so much more powerful than the reporter. So social media amplifies your earned media. The public is now saying that your brand is great. And they're saying it to their friends and their fans, followers, people who trust them. So that's where you want your messaging to be. But the keys are, don't lie. You must be honest and transparent. Think about building relationships. It goes beyond building relationships with the press. You want to build relationships with the public, with the customer. Be responsive. If you're going to put yourself out there, make sure you have the resources to respond. And don't blast. Don't just send out a blast message everywhere. Don't blanket people. Be highly targeted. Go for the smaller mini blasts, if you will. Personalize. It is about trust. I'm Elisa Sherman, founder of Media Egg, a social, mobile, digital consultancy.
The key for earned media in this new digital age is really having a different perspective on the way things work. PR professionals have always valued relationships and understanding content creators. Moving forward, earned media will be based on going deeper and developing a deep understanding, not so much of the client, but of the end users. So instead of content creators, the focus will be on content consumers, and specifically on helping content consumers tell their story instead of the corporate story. Consumers are identifying with brands not so much to promote a brand, but to say something about themselves. It's all about self-expression. So earned media will be based on your ability to help end users express themselves in telling their own stories. And the key mindset is one of total immersion in the end user's world more than in the client's world. A gentleman in Toronto, Canada, Jim Ducharme, told me about a very popular DJ in Toronto who typifies what I'm talking about here and really helps illustrate what a PR professional should do moving forward. This DJ would get on the city bus line, ride it from one end of the line to the other end of the line, and talk to no one, but simply take notes about every conversation that he heard, the terms and the expressions and the frustrations, and he would make a note of them. And then on the way back, he would stop at a local diner and do the same thing. Basically, he was picking up all the stories and the symbols and the words and the illustrations that the end user was using to identify where they were in the world and who they were. So the PR professional immersed in the end user's world can help the end user tell their story and thereby have a leg up on gaining earned media going forward. I'm Trey Pennington at treypennington.com.
What do PR people understand that other marketers traditionally haven't?
Public relations has historically been driven by two key virtues, and I feel these differentiate it from other marketing disciplines, such as advertising. And these virtues are an understanding of narrative and a sense of campaign. In terms of narrative, we're storytellers, and we've been telling stories really since the first press release was issued back in 1906. We've built a profession around creating and encouraging people to listen to, and most critically, to share our stories. This has largely been through the news media, using tactics such as press releases, interviews, and so on. In the digital age, this means we're using techniques such as blogger relations, campaign management through Facebook and Twitter, YouTube videos, and so on to tell our clients' stories. This history has given PR people a good ability to drive discussion towards a singular aim, to use stories to support our clients' business objectives. The second thing I feel that differentiates PR is its sense of campaign. We're in it for the long haul. PR isn't driven by the 13-week advertising event. We tend not to create events with a big bang finish. We think about 6, 12-month campaigns with complex, overlapping objectives. These campaigns are built on an understanding of what helps drive our clients' audiences to make decisions. While the events undeniably help, we understand what creates attention, drives interest, helps people form buying decisions. Then once someone's decided to buy, we understand how to get them into a brand community, then ultimately become a brand advocate. We're in it for the long haul. I'm Jeremy Wolf, Text 100. I'm a Senior Vice President and the Global Social Media and Digital Lead.
I think there are three major things that PR people understand in the realm of marketing that other marketers maybe haven't quite grasped as fully as PR folks have. The first thing is that PR practitioners
are trained in the principles of dialogue, which is two or many-way communication, as opposed to monologue, which is one-way communication. Particularly in the world of advertising, and this is the way it's worked throughout most of the 20th century and even the first couple of years of the 21st century, is that advertisers push out messages. It's one-way communication, and consumers on the receiving end. In the world of social media, it's two-way dialogue, it's two-way communication. PR people have been engaging in that two-way communication since the inception of public relations through our dealings with journalists. We know in PR that we can shape the messages, we can't completely control messages. And social media just amplifies what we already know, that you can shape but not control the messaging. And I think PR people appreciate that more than folks in other marketing disciplines. The second thing is that PR people, I think, more fully grasp in other marketing disciplines is that social media is media, which means content is king. And what I mean by that is that people who are blogging, who are tweeting, or on Facebook are members of the media, just like a reporter from the New York Times or a journalist at CNBC or CNN are journalists. And as such, they need to be treated as members of the media, and they need to be treated with a soft hand. And we need to provide content that is non-commercial or is minimally commercial, and that there is a real story to be told. And that's actually the third point, that PR really, really is about storytelling. And it's storytelling in the context of it's all about a softer sell. And you can soft sell your product or your service or your message in the context of a larger story or a larger narrative you're trying to weave. And PR people have a particular expertise in weaving stories and narratives, because that's what we've been doing for the last 100 years. I'm Jason Winnicor. I'm the Social and Digital Media Practice Leader at Hunter Public Relations.
What do other marketers understand that PR people traditionally haven't?
As a marketer and a PR person, I can see both sides of what goes on when you talk with clients. And I think one thing that marketers understand that PR people don't always get right away is the landscape approach or the whole world approach to what's happening with the client and what they need to know. And let's face it, a lot of times our clients come to us in PR and they want us to direct activity around an event. It could be a campaign, it could be one day, it could be an event, it could even be maybe an hour. So, we're often forced to be laser focused. And what marketers understand is how to really take that mindset from relating with the public just once into turning PR into what I like to call profitable relationships. So at that point, PR becomes a profitable relationship perspective. And what we're doing is looking how we can really benefit with each other. Now, how do marketers do that? Well, a lot of times they have a system. And if you have a degree in marketing like I do, you probably remember the 4 or 5 Ps, which is price, product, place, promotion, and people. And the one thing that marketers use to really drive their system is a call to action. All along the way, they're helping people figure out what they need to do next. A couple things happen when you do this. You ask people to take action, and that helps measure activity. It also tells you what they're interested in. So you go from, relating just once or twice to having that long-term approach on how you can build a profitable relationship that really integrates with what the business goals might be, whether it's to get new employees, to sell more products, or to really just raise up and have more visibility in your market. So some ways you can have a call to action. You can ask people to click, like, link, watch, share, or even buy. There are all kinds of ways to go from that perspective where you're just once at a time to having that long-term build. I'm Barbara Rosconi. I write the blog Wired PR Works, and stop by and say hello. Thanks.
Traditionally, public relations professionals have focused on communications. And more recently, obviously with social media, we've added more two-way communications into the mix of what PR pros are typically responsible for. And while the best PR people have always had the organization's broader goals in mind, and those are often business goals, we haven't always had to think across the silos about bigger picture integration. So, for example, pretty much only in the case of a crisis has PR, in the case of a major product disaster, for example, had to have much to do with customer service. And, in the past, that's been our role, is mainly to communicate and not deal as much with these other aspects of the business. On the other hand, traditional marketers have often looked at things more holistically
because that's their job. So things like getting leads into the pipeline and qualifying those leads, and other things like broader customer relationship management. So today, though, with technology breaking down the barriers, I really think public relations needs to look at playing a key role in integration across the enterprise, or even if you're a small business, because we really are the stewards of our organization's communications, and that really touches everything. So this is Kelly Crane. I'm the principal of Crane Communications and the blog at Solo PR Pro.
What do journalists understand that PR people and other marketers traditionally haven't?
Journalists understand inherently how to tell a story. That is, having a beginning, a middle, and an end, developing characters, developing plot, and all those pieces that truly make people understand a concept. Don Hewitt, the creator of 60 Minutes, used to say that the basic human need is tell me a story. Tell me something I want to hear. Tell me something about people. That's what journalists understand. They look at everything that's out there and they can say, this constitutes a true story that my readers want to hear. Marketers quite often are pushing for that call to action. How do I get somebody to go from an idea to taking an action and either clicking on something or buying something or reaching out to me in some way? And journalists don't need to do that. So they're a little freer in being able to just tell that story in a way that makes sense for human consumption. Where that has to translate on the writing style is journalists are clear and concise in their writing. They use plain language. They don't try to get deep into market speak and things like that. Market speak quite often develops because marketers are trying to find a single word that tells a whole concept, that gets down to everything that they want to say in one word. Journalists don't bother doing that. They want to tell that story from the human point of view, and that ends up translating into better storytelling and therefore better content. So as marketers begin to look at their content and how do I make my content better, they have to think like journalists and think journalistically in terms of having a storytelling device. Once you take this from just being able to tell a story, then you begin to learn to use all the different tools at your disposal, whether that is audio, video, text, images, etc. Those are all used to simply get to tell the story, not to sell a product. And that's when you start to drive people toward you. I'm Chuck Tanowitz. I'm principal of Fresh Ground Inc.
I believe that companies need to be aware of the changes over the last couple of years and how journalists work. They may not always take the content you give them. They will go out and look for content peripheral to your site. And I think it's important that companies build bodies of work on sites like, LinkedIn, Facebook, Flickr, SlideShare, DocStock. Put your content external to your website so you can be found, discovered, and shared. The other thing that I find is, even though, I pitch stories, to journalists, a lot of the times I'm finding a lot of success because my clients are found or they're discovered by journalists because of the strategies that we use to populate content on various social platforms. I don't think it's a case of what PR people know or what journalists know or don't know, one over the other. I think it's just a basic principle and a shift that's happening. And it's just being aware of it and being aware that you need to populate content external to your website and put them on social internet sites. Alan Weinkrantz. I'm a public relations consultant to American and Israeli high-tech companies. I also do social media consulting and content development strategies.
How can the people responsible for PR, advertising, and own content collaborate more effectively?
Well, that's easy. Two things have to happen. First, it has to be mandated. The people in control, the CMO, has to say, listen, this is going to happen. We're going to work together on this. We're going to make it happen. Because if it's not supported from the top, and if it's not mandated and said, listen, this isn't an option, then people can back out, do their own thing, and, basically sabotage it, make it not happen. But more importantly, the second thing that needs to happen is you have to start getting these teams together. By just mandating and saying, we will do this, it will not work. A lot of times, maybe there's resentment, maybe they're in different parts of the building, who knows what it is. Get these people together. Start with meetings. When you're planning things, get them talking then, on emails. Anything that's going on about a certain project, get them involved. Have a lunch and learn. Sit down, just grab some pizza or beer and hang out so that the people start to get to know one another and talk about the projects they're on. It's not going to happen overnight, and you're going to have to work kind of hard to make it happen. But listen, so the next project you're going to work on, right, whatever it is, maybe it's a product launch, maybe it's an event, who knows what it is. Whatever it is, start getting them all involved from day one, and on all the emails, copying them so you make sure everybody's in the loop and people can share ideas. It's going to take time, but pick something small, start there, and move forward. I promise the more you do it, it gets easier over time, I promise. I'm CC Chapman, co-author of Content Rules, and you can find me at cc-chapman.com.
When teams are talking about collaboration and getting together, the first thing is to talk about why you're in this game. And I think marketers need to send messages throughout their team to figure out why you're doing what you're doing and what are the reasons behind it. And does everybody else have that same message and same theme and energy around it? I talk about the 118. 8 seconds is the average attention span of an adult. I know that to be true. I looked it up on the internet. 110 seconds is the average elevator ride in New York City from the time you press the button to the time in which you ride up or ride down and get off. So that's really what it is, the new elevator pitch. So what's the elevator pitch in your company, that message that you want to deliver, and does everybody understand it and know how to deliver it? I think that's very critical for a business. And so that 118 becomes a very important message or theme to drive throughout your business and so that everybody can rally around. The second area is around conditions of satisfaction, or what we might call mutual conditions of satisfaction, where I sit down with my team members, and I sit down certainly with the person I'm performing those duties for, my CEO, my board of directors, my chairman, and I want to deliver value. So I'm the performer, they're the customer. So I figure out what promises I need to deliver, what mutual conditions of satisfaction, and then my team want to deliver those for me as well. And I think another area that you need to be focusing on is listening. And that is, as a chief officer in your company, as a real leader, leaders need to listen. And by listening, you can do a better job of bringing things together and collaborating on the things that you might need to have. And last but not least, it's about affecting the mood. What are you doing to make sure that your best days are ahead of you and conveying that message to the rest of your team so you get more collaboration, more innovation? This has been Jeff Hazlett, author of The Mirror Test.
What does success look like in the era of radical integration? How do we measure the ROI of paid, earned, and owned media both independently and as components of the integrated marketing mix?
Whatever kind of communication initiative you're leading, be it traditional PR, social media, or advertising, start by asking yourself one simple question. What does success look like? How will you know if your effort is working or not? For example, I'm working with one project where our success is judged based on the number of user-generated videos submitted for a specific contest. On another, we're totally focused on getting people to sign up and use a new app. In the B2B space, I have a client that crowdsources their product development. So one of our metrics is tied to the number of product submissions they receive through their website. Don't wait until the end of a campaign to measure its effectiveness. One of the biggest benefits of the digital shift is the ability to track results during a campaign. For example, if you're managing a traditional media relations or blogger outreach effort, you should be able to tell partway through the campaign if it's achieving the desired outcomes or not. If it's not, don't keep doing the same thing over and over. Instead, look at what you're doing and retool it to be more effective. What other metrics can you measure? Web traffic, downloads, event attendance, purchases, for example. Plus, social media can support customer service. For example, I do work for an event in the fall, and we've been able to deliver a better customer experience because we answer questions from our Facebook and Twitter networks from participants. HR and employee recruitment and retention are also ways to use social media and to measure their effectiveness. Unfortunately, there is no one-size-fits-all success metric. While things like fans and followers matter online, without them, you're just talking to yourself. Network size alone doesn't equate to success. Similarly, if you're working on an advertising or PR campaign, don't just measure eyeballs or impressions. Business execs don't care if you secure a bunch of clicks or get retweeted by someone famous if it doesn't help their bottom line. Focus on how measuring your communication efforts relates back to a bigger business goal. This is Heather Whaling, president of Gebbon Communication. You can find me on my blog, prtini.com, or on Twitter @prtini.
Paid media really is the definition of advertising. So you want to be sure that you're working with your advertising department to figure out ways to report results and measure results for paid media. Earned media, as you know, is media relations. So it's working with reporters and bloggers to get the best story that you can for your service, your product, or your client's services and products. The way that you want to track your earned media is you can really think about things like, is there a media room on the website? And are we driving media and bloggers to that site? Are we building relationships with bloggers by commenting on their blogs and developing the relationship so that when you have some news to share, they're willing to do some work with you? Are you increasing your traffic to your website, to your blog, to your content? And owned media, you're really looking at your blog, white papers, ebooks, webinars, things like that you're creating, the content that you're creating. And the ways that you can track that kind of return on investment is really looking at having a blog post, and at the end of the blog post, a call to action that allows you to create white papers and ebooks or webinars that people can download and get more information. Perhaps you have content that you want to require registration. It's still free, but you want to collect that email address. So you provide more value in that content so that people are more willing to give you their email address. When you start to look at it as a holistic approach, you begin to see that not only are you building a database, which is typically direct mail, not only are you tracking paid media, which is typically advertising, not only are you helping to drive leads, which is typically marketing, you're also helping to generate those leads and convert those leads, which is typically sales. So you've become this integrated part in a hub of information that allows you to really be looked at as an investment instead of an expense. Jenny Dietrich, I'm the CEO of Arment Dietrich and the author of Spin Sucks.
Hi everyone. Thank you for joining us over these past 60 minutes to explore the future of media, the concepts of radical integration, and the changing roles of marketers. Over the coming weeks, Cision will share additional content to help you understand and master these emerging tools and best practices for radical integration. So keep an eye out for more resources from us. And if you'd like to learn more about how Cision helps you power your story, visit Cision.com. Thank you again for joining us today.